Hello, class. Welcome to our video lecture on what's globalization doing to language, and Coca-Cola's multilingual America ad didn't hit any wrong notes. For essay 4, your final essay for the semester, as you know, you get to pick whatever topic you so choose from the opposing viewpoints database, and you've got quite a few to choose from. And if you wanted to write about language and use any of the essays in this chapter as a starting point, or in particular the Coca-Cola Multilingual America ad, um, feel free to do so. You have such a great choice on the opposing viewpoints database. I always tell students for essay 4, think about maybe what your major is, or specifically an area that interests you or an issue that interests you, or just click on the database and browse through it. Remember, we've clicked on vegetarianism, right? Our second essay, we clicked on gender identity or stereotyping or LGBTQIA rights. Our third essay, you could have clicked on a numerous privacy, surveillance, Facebook, social media, any of that. So for this one, I've gotten a lot of papers on reality TV and doxing and all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of modern political topics if you want to write about things that are current in our current situations, culture, society. So you have a lot of freedom. You may be thinking about language, especially if English is a second language. And I think they do a nice job here of summarizing what each of the selections are and how the selections in this chapter, it's almost like they do a little précis of each of the selections here. So if language is something that you want to write about, now you kind of have a general idea of what the different essays and articles are going to focus on. And, as we know, I always tell you, your title is so important, right? And so just by looking at the titles, you can get a general idea, right? The first one, obviously, it's about the Coca-Cola America ad during the Super Bowl. You can watch the commercial. Uh, it'll be present in the module, so maybe watch the commercial if you haven't already as you review the essay and watch this video. Maybe you hit pause on this video, go into the module. I mean, I'll put the commercial before the video, but just in case you skipped over it. Um, Immigrants who speak indigenous languages encounter isolation. Um, Focuses on the consequences of globalization. Remember, everything's about causes and effects. We wrote about the effects of eating meat on the environment. We wrote about the effects of stereotyping, the effects of domestic surveillance on privacy. Right? So now you get to pick whatever topic you want. Infographics speak my language, uh, highlights the side effects of globalization, again, effects. Saving languages through Korean soap operas, that's a fun one. We're going to read that one, so we'll talk about that in a video to come. Anyway, so if we turn the page, now we're on 570. Coca-Cola's multilingual America ad didn't hit any wrong notes. Play on words, right? It's an advertisement with the song in multiple languages. Notes, right? The whole play on words with music. So very effective title. So essentially, right? When spending more than, we'll start with the intro. When spending more than 40 million for 30 seconds of America's attention, one's first job is to assure that whatever is put in front of it is remembered 30 seconds later, ideally days later. So notice how they open up with a specific example to get you to think about it. For Coca-Cola, call it mission accomplished. Right? So a 30-second ad should get you to keep thinking about it days later. And what they're saying is that's exactly what happened. One of Coca-Cola's Super Bowl ads featured America the Beautiful. Now notice how you put the title of the song in quotes. Sung in 8 different languages. They were English, Tagalog, Senegalese, French, Hebrew, Mandarin, Caribbean Pueblo, Arabic, and Spanish. Well done. We'll defend that stance in just a moment. Before that, it's worth noting that portions of the Twitter universe lost their collective mind after the commercial ad. The hashtag of #FCoke started trending hot as irrational Americans, right? But Americans, right? Utterly misplaced their patriotism and ape-like started heaving poop at one of America's iconic brands. Okay, so we're reading this essay towards the end of the semester. Why? I mean, it's pretty cool how they're using humor. Now, do you find it offensive? I don't. I think it works great. But you have to be careful with humor. You do, because not everybody thinks it's funny. So we've been mainly focusing on academic arguments, right? If you want to bring a little humor in, pepper in a little humor in your essays for essay 4, that's fine. Our topics have been pretty serious, so it hasn't really necessarily been a place, if you would, in our essays. But depending on what you choose to write about in this final essay, you may find yourself using humor. And if so, if that's the case, right, this essay is a good example to emulate. Um, so again, they give us good background. They draw us in with the hook, with the intro, with the specific example. What I'd like to do is skip to paragraph 10. Um, I like how the Rogerian argument continues because, as we know, that's our first term, and everything's a Rogerian argument. That's effective because there's very few things, if anything, that we agree on. So you always have to find that middle balance. There is nothing wrong, paragraph 10, page 571. There is nothing wrong with multilingualism. If anything, we don't spend nearly enough time learning at least a second language. That is both an American-centric and educational failure. I think that's a good point, especially those of you who speak multiple languages can attest to that. The first thing that the commercial proved is that the song sounds pretty good, regardless of the language in which it is sung. Paragraph 11. The second thing it proved is that there are individuals who believe in the words even if the language in which it was originally written is not the one that came first for them. Power of language, multiple language. Again, possible essay topic for number 4. Yes, now I'm in paragraph 12. We believe those living in the United States should learn English. It is not the official language, but it has been since the nation's inception, the accepted common tongue, and it will continue to be. Our inclusive society requires some desire on the part of others to be included. Learning English is part of that inclusivity. That's a good point. Right? Whenever I've had students who speak, English as a second language and they have difficulties, as you know, I allow you to revise everything. Have I not accepted précis late? Have I not accepted revisions of essays? Again, I don't have a problem with that. But whenever I see those issues, I understand because Spanish, when I took Spanish in college, it was very difficult for me. And I did not do very well in it. And I get it. But that's why I don't teach in Mexico City, right? Because if I were to teach in Mexico City, I should become part of that culture and become inclusive and learn the language. So that's why those of us English as a second language, you're taking your English classes to better become inclusive and part of the culture. And I think that's a really good point. And I think that they do a nice job of using the commercial and the song sung in multiple languages, right? This is a really well written essay, and the topic, the purpose, the claim, the visual of the commercial. Again, if you haven't watched it, make sure you go back and watch it. It all works together. So this is a perfect example of how, remember in the very beginning of the book, it said everything's an argument, not just words. It can be visuals, it can be oral, right? Things that music, things like that. Symphonies are arguments. Music is an argument to calm you, to get you pumped up, etc. This whole essay, the song, and the ad are a perfect example of how everything's coming together, right? So I hope you found this helpful, and if language is something you want to continue writing on in the future, this is a good starting point. But again, I think it's just a pretty interesting commercial and a pretty interesting concept and very relevant in our present culture and society. Just want to leave you with the final paragraph. Notice how it starts with, I'm sorry, the conclusion is two paragraphs, the very last one's short. But notice how the transition of the conclusion starts with the word but. Again, the Rogerian argument. But it does not mean that we are forced to unlearn those things that defined us before we came to be Americans, right? So just because you're learning English and you're becoming part of American culture with the language of English, it doesn't mean you have to give up your other cultures, right? We can be just as patriotic and can act just as freely if we sing those words in English or in any of the languages listed above and any of the others that we're not, right? Um, Again, what a great point. What a great way to bring it all together and to reach that middle ground. Show the importance of learning English, but the importance of also keeping your native languages and cultures and customs just as, if not more important, as part of your routines, your practices, your traditions, right? On to the final paragraph. In the final analysis for Coca Cola, this was money well spent. Here we are, still talking about the ad. I take you back to the intro paragraph, right? An advertisement is meant for people to remember it 30 seconds later, if not days later. We're still talking about it. The title is great. It uses the figure of speech, the pun on notes, right? The intro grabs your attention and the conclusion brings it all together. Hope this was helpful. Stay tuned.